Travel in time through the peninsula on the New South Wales Central Coast, beginning in 1936 through to 2016. Peninsular Paradise is the story of how our lifestyle has changed over 80 years, but also showing how our beautiful environment has not. No matter where you go on the peninsula, you usually find the sun shining down on sparkling water, your personal invitation from Mother Nature, encompassing the seaside suburbs of Woy Woy, Umina, Ettalong Beach, Patonga and Pearl Beach. The beaches, national parks, waterways and Lion Island are still as they were to be enjoyed by us all and our future generation. Walk with us to enjoy this wonder of Peninsular Paradise, yesterday and today. Travel in time through New South Wales Central Coast Peninsula. Walk with us to enjoy with wonder our Peninsular Paradise.
In 1936, a film by Claude Fleming called Woy Woy, the Venice of Australia, introduced the peninsula to the world. The film was commissioned by the then Woy Woy Council in December 1935 and was released in 1936 to be screened in picture theatres around Australia. Claude Fleming was an Australian actor, writer, producer and director of theatre and film whose varied stage career spanned the first half of the 20th century. He also appears periodically throughout this 1936 black and white film, initially arriving at the railway station, after which he plays lawn bowls and takes a boat trip. Fleming also directed Peter Finch's first but now lost film, The Magic Shoes, at Pagewood Studios, Sydney in the mid-1930s. Woy Woy, the Venice of Australia, is a story of a young girl named Sally who travelled with her uncle to the peninsula. It's been 80 years since the film was released and so much has changed. If Sally could see the peninsula now, it would be almost unrecognisable. But even through all these changes, she would most certainly agree it still remains a peninsular paradise. Let's sit back and enjoy Claude Fleming's film when it was first released in 1936, Woy Woy, the Venice of Australia.
Oh, hello everybody. The Aboriginal translation of the words Woy Woy is water here, water there, more water there, and more water.
Actually, the real translation of Woy Woy is believed to be a corruption of the Aboriginal Woy Woy, which is said to mean deep water, much water, or big lagoon.
The express crossing the Hawkesbury River Bridge brings us to Woy Woy, which is about 45 miles from Sydney by rail. My little niece, Sally, was very excited over the prospect of her holiday. And on our arrival, we were met by some very charming friends who had arranged for us to leave right away and see the sights. Oh, hello, Sally. By Jove, what a big girl you've grown. Looking so pretty, too.
That was 80 years ago. Let's fast forward Sally and her uncle into the 21st century for another visit to the modern-day peninsula.
Fantastic to be here. Great to see you all.
A lot has changed on the peninsula since the 1930s. Is it going to be the paradise they so clearly remember? Already you can see why the name Woy Woy is associated with water, with deep water surrounding the towns of the peninsula. Woy Woy has one of the oldest pubs still in operation today. As you walk around the town, you'll come across a few of the other old buildings that will bring back the memories for our 1936 visitors. In contrast to the old buildings, one will find the Deepwater Plaza, a modern shopping complex which houses a range of businesses from banks, cafes, food court, travel agents and major fresh food stores. Among the many buildings to take on a 21st century look in Woy Woy is the St John the Baptist Church on Blackwall Road. The parish of Woy Woy was established in 1946 and Dr Walter Baker was appointed first parish priest. The original St John the Baptist Church had been closed and converted into a parish hall in memory of Dr Baker. A new church was built on the opposite side of the road. This modern design church opened in late 2007. The centre is used by Mary Max, a parish organisation that provides free meals to the hungry. In the old 1936 film, our friends were invited to the Woy Woy Bowling Club that only opened a few years before their first visit and is still operating today.
And with that hospitality that one always associates with the Australian sporting clubs, I was invited to try my hand. Now be careful. Ah, that one slipped. Come back.
Woy Woy Bowling Club. There's been little change in the game of lawn bowls in the 21st century. Ladies also enjoying playing what was once called the gentleman's game. Bowls is played using the same rules, but long gone are the all-white uniform, which has now been replaced with the bright and colourful design one will see at all bowls clubs around Australia. Even the bowls are not always black anymore. One of the first places that our 20th century guests wanted to visit was the Woy Woy Memorial Park, to show their respect as they had done 80 years before. The Memorial Park has seen many changes since their last visit.
There is no spot more loved and tenderly cared for than this simple little memorial park with its bright flower beds and picturesque formations nestling at the foot of the monument bearing the names of the brave.
Looking over Brisbane water is the treasured Memorial Park. Originally, the park's only structure was the monument bearing the names of the brave soldiers lost in World War I and earlier campaigns. Standing as a stark reminder of the past wars, one would also find a captured artillery piece. However, as the years passed, more wars would take place, including World War II, Korea and the Vietnam War. With so many soldiers making the ultimate sacrifice, many more names would need to be added, so a wall was erected around the Memorial Park listing the fallen soldiers, but the gun has long since been removed. The area stands as a symbol of resilience. It appears our Sally has found the Woy Woy public wharf. I wonder what she'll think of the ferry when it arrives. Sally, look to your right. This is one of our modern-day ferries arriving now. Ferries are much larger than the boats that used to dock at these wharves. Even the privately owned pleasure craft can often be very large indeed. Today these ferries carry hundreds of people every day around Brisbane water, sometimes for work, but nowadays mostly for pleasure trips. Just when the 1930s seem a distant memory, an old steam train brings history into the modern era. In the 21st century, we like to dream about what we call the good old days. So some train enthusiasts have restored some of the old engines so passengers can relive the romantic era of steam. Some aspects of the peninsula still remain even after 80 years. Boating and fishing have always been an important part of the area's history and will continue to be favourite activities for many years to come. At the Woy Woy public wharf, these boys have to pay close attention to the ferries that pull into the wharf. We also have an old small ship called the Lady Kendall too. Watch out boys, Lady Kendall is one boat you don't want to get snagged on. It's 106 feet long and is part of the Starship's operations. It is the last of the mini-liners and is a voyage of leisure for all who sail on her. A tradition for most youngsters living on the peninsula is diving off the public wharves in the area. For over 80 years, children have flocked to the waters and taken the plunge, and they'll continue to do so for another 80 more.
If you will take your small niece for a holiday, you generally find yourself doing just what your niece wants you to do. And Sally wanted a trip on the launch, so here we are.
One of the most exciting trips Sally and her uncle took 80 years ago was a ride in a launch to get a better view of the paradise. Let's take Sally and her uncle on one of today's modern craft. We can certainly do the trip a lot faster than they would have 80 years ago. In the 1930s, Sally and her uncle would have only used the waterways of the peninsula as a means of getting from place to place. With the addition of new bridges and roadways, most use Brisbane water for leisure cruising and water sports like kayaking, although the public ferry still remains connected to the peninsula and the surrounding areas. As our time travellers cruise along the waterway, Sally cannot help but marvel at the changes the area has seen and how different the world must be.
It's a little odd, seeing the peninsula now. Although the waterways are the same, everything around it is completely different. There are buildings where there once was bush, bridges where ferries were needed, and boats with almost silent engines. Why is there no smoke coming from chimneys off the boats and trains that pass by? We've been told that no one uses coal or wood fires to drive their engines anymore. Even the people are different now. They wear the strangest clothes, and everything seems so busy with all the cars on the road, where once they were mostly horses. It's certainly a much faster pace now, everyone rushing to get to where they're going.
Boats of the 21st century are a whole new modern design, from very small jet skis that can carry one or two riders to the very large pleasure craft that can carry many passengers and often can accommodate overnight living. Although boats are heavier, they can travel at much higher speed and can travel great distances in a very short time. They often grace the peninsular waterways, with families enjoying a day out on the water, skiing, paragliding, or just taking in the natural and modern look of the area. Sometimes seaplanes will land on the water, delivering passengers to the peninsula for a day of sightseeing and returning home to Sydney in the afternoon. There's been quite a few famous characters who've taken up residence on the peninsula. One was Spike Milligan, who we'll talk about later. The other was a young pharmacist named Rod Radford, who moved to Wagstaff and opened up his business in Ettalong in the mid-1940s. Rod is now a resident at the Peninsula Village at Umina Beach. Now, this is not why Mr. Radford became a local celebrity. No, it was all about a car he purchased to use for his work. It was an amphicar.
The amphicar is a normal car designed to go into the water and act as a boat.
He's going to work at his pharmacy, also quite normal. But it's 27 miles. He's late and he's not hurrying. Well, he gets into his car and drives away. Hey, look out, you're going into the water. Believe it or not, customers also quite normal. You see, Ron owns an Amphicar, the fabulous West German vehicle that
And I
sells...
could understand why, when I was driving it up from Sydney, even elderly ladies standing on the corner would see the car and their head would move like that as they watched and wondered what it was, and to see the two propellers underneath it might give them an explanation of what it was intended for.
As Rod lived at Wagstaff and his business was at Ettalong, for 20 years Rod rode himself and his wife Pat across the water Monday to Saturday in all weather, rain, hail or shine, to attend to their pharmacy on Ferry Road. The car, with propellers, allowed Mr Radford to drive down his boat ramp, motor to Ettalong and drive out of the water to his business.
I drove to the entry point of going in at Ferry Road into the water across to our place. So I had Pat and the family aboard and I said, well, I've not driven in the water before. Here we go, we'll all go together. So it was a case of going into the water. Having got into the water and driven around with, while the people that had gathered to watch us at Ferry Road go in, the locals, said, we might as well drive back and make sure we can get out.
With the purchase of the Amphicar, Rod would drop Pat off at home, then start his delivery of urgent medicines to Wagstaff, Pretty Beach, Kilcare and Empire Bay. As there was no Rip Bridge in those days, the special Amphicar made it all possible. There wasn't a kid in town back then who did not get at least one ride in Rod's special car. In 2016, Rod Radford was invited to relive the experience of driving an Amphicar on the water. It was supplied by Tony Nasser, who drove his Amphicar up from his hometown of Cooma in southern New South Wales. Rod was told this event was part of the filming of the documentary, but in fact it was a decoy, so that Rod could be driven by an Amphicar and arrive by water to a very special event organised by the Rotary Club of Umina Beach to commemorate Rod Radford's 65 years of community service. A special plaque was unveiled in Rod's honour to recognise this remarkable achievement. Rod and Pat Radford, icons of Ettalong, beautiful people and so caring and good to their community. Rod recently celebrated his 96th birthday.
Pleasure boats are everywhere, filled with happy people enjoying themselves. Beautiful scenes come into view all round Broken Bay, and you can see here the famous Rip, where the water bubbles and twists and twirls. It's interesting to note that Governor Phillip visited Broken Bay in 1778 and remarked on the grandeur of the scenery. I wonder what he thought of the beaches.
We entered a very extensive branch from the ebb. Tide came out so strong that the boats could not row against it in the stream. Governor Captain Arthur Phillip, R.N., 1788.
When we were here 80 years ago, we visited the Henry Cox homestead. I would love to see it again.
Actually, Sally, see that bridge ahead of us? The old homestead later became the Ettalong Hall, which was then demolished to make way for the construction of the Rip Bridge, the entrance to the peninsula.
Friends were very keen for us to visit this famous old homestead. It was built of stone, quarried on the spot, and from the veranda, no matter which way you looked, magnificent scenes come into view. It was owned by the late Major Croft.
The old homestead was a favourite among visitors to the peninsula. Its sandstone arches looked over the waters that brought so many people to the area. The homestead was later demolished to make way for the construction of the Rip Bridge, which was opened in 1974. The bridge connects Ettalong to Daly's Point, an area which was only accessible via boat or an hour-long drive around the Brisbane water via Gosford. The bridge gains its name from the harsh natural currents that flow beneath it. The rip on the surface is caused by the narrowing of the banks and the very deep holes beneath the water. These rips would often torment boats as they made the journey over the deep holes. Today, with the much more powerful motors in the modern boats, the rip is no longer a force to be reckoned with, but still makes an impressive sight on big high tides. From the grand old homes of yesterday to ultra-modern energy-saving homes of today, this functional home and its majestic views across the peninsula utilise the natural light and open plan design to create an environment that is almost totally self-sufficient of any external energy needs apart from the sun itself. The home has been designed to be ecologically friendly and fits into the landscape with all the rocks, trees and water views to become one with nature. The technology society in which we now live is a world apart from what Sally would have grown up with. In schools today there's no such thing as a blackboard. It's been replaced by a smartboard, and books have almost been replaced by computer laptops or notepads. School children of today have instant contact with the world around them, when in Sally's time it would take days, weeks or sometimes months for news or information to be received. Children's sport is well catered for on the peninsula. Throughout the year you can see the local kids playing cricket, soccer, football, tennis, netball and many other sports. In 2016 we saw the reopening of the Woy Woy sporting complex with the completion of the new modern grandstand. In winter one will see the local Woy Woy Lions rugby union players battling it out on the ground with other local clubs, while in summer a game of cricket can be enjoyed. Apart from its natural wonders, the people of the peninsula have created an individual identity, including its own theatre, cafe, society and art world. However, it still maintains the secret of this very special place. The arts are well represented on the coast, with many expos showcasing the region's finest artists.
For a long time we've had a passion about art on the Central Coast because there's a certain enrichment of the artists here, and I had some experience with the National Art School in my previous life. So when I moved up to the coast some 19 years ago, I thought this is a great place to be, and I went to so many exhibitions and the artists up here, from the hobby artists to the professionals, were so passionate about what they did, and their creative talent just hit me because I've seen lots of art all over the world. So I was taken by that, and here in the Bays we thought we should promote that. So we decided some 7 years ago to put on our art shows.
The Central Coast is such a beautiful place for an artist to live. I live in a rainforest. I live in a battle axe block. No one knows I'm there, and so I can get down the back of this suburbia, if you like, and live in a forest. What more could you want? You walk out the front, there's the shops. You walk out the back, I've got a waterfall.
The arts on the Central Coast are vibrant. There is so many artists here. I'm involved with a few groups. We do a lot of life drawing, portrait painting, and it's funny when you have exhibition openings, they all come out of the woodwork. It's quite rich and everyone's very encouraging, very helpful.
Sally's friends have invited them to have coffee and spend some time shopping with the ladies at the Ettalong markets.
Wow! What is that girl playing with? It's the strangest thing I've ever seen. What is she doing with it? I've seen so many of these contraptions. It seems like everyone has one. She's so involved with that thing that she won't even talk to her friends. How rude.
Sally and the ladies are off to do some shopping at Ettalong markets, leaving her uncle to ponder how long they'll be, as there are still so many new things to see. As Sally walks around the Ettalong markets, which now have some fine restaurants, lots of quaint market stores and cinema complex, she's finding it very difficult to comprehend the fantastic technology that surrounds her. In fact, she never even knew the word technology before arriving today. No matter where she travels, her eyes are drawn to things that just don't make sense as to how they work, or what they do most of the time. The world 80 years on is certainly something to behold for young Sally. In spite of the fact that she's mesmerised by what she's experiencing, she still feels out of place in this new society. The mobile phone is one thing that has captured Sally's interest. She still doesn't understand how it works. Now that's got Sally's attention.
It looks like everyone has one of those telephone thingies. How can they work? There are no wires or the turn handle that one must have and use to contact to the operator.
Liana trying the best she can to explain to Sally how a mobile phone works. It's almost like speaking in a different language to anyone who's never seen a mobile before.
Most of the time I just see people playing with it by just touching it, and there's a light on it. They make the strangest sounds.
Now this happy mother surrounded by her babies, this happy father. I have much pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, in introducing to you little Miss Woy Woy. What a darling.
After 80 years, one place that has not changed is the beach. It is still the biggest part of Peninsular culture. In the summertime, children can still be seen building sandcastles on the shore and playing in the waves. These little girls are wearing the modern standard for kids' swimwear with their vibrant colours and playful designs, while boys are often seen wearing board shorts as they hang 10 on their surfboards.
Something's going to happen here, judging by interest these people are taking. Nearly every Australian beach of note has its surf club. And Ocean Beach Club gives us a demonstration of life-saving that compares with the best. Picture theatres all over the world, through their interesting newsreels, show the magnificent work that is being done on Australian beaches.
Playing a vital role in the beach culture are the surf lifesaving clubs. The first club was founded in 1922 on Ocean Beach. Since then, the area has seen the emergence of the Umina Beach Club further along the shoreline. Life-saving techniques have evolved over time thanks to advances in technology. Rescues today can involve the use of jet skis and even helicopters. Even with all this technology at the ready, the most important resources on any surf rescue are the men and women who volunteer many hours each week, keeping the beaches safe for all swimmers.
Do the lifesavers still use the reel line and belt for the rescues today?
No, Sally, they don't use the reel line and belt anymore. They've taken that off the beach a number of years ago because they're just not quick enough in the rescue. They use the jet ski, which is very popular, the IRB, and normally the rescue board is the quickest way to do the rescues now.
Surf lifesaving clubs have proven themselves to be a progressive group, with women now playing an integral part in lifesaving duties. Nippers is an activity run by surf lifesaving clubs for the local children and helps to keep the kids active and aware of the importance of beach safety. Many children around the peninsula have been involved in Nippers, and many continue on to become lifesavers. These clubs come together annually to compete in surf lifesaving competitions on beaches around Australia, with competitions held for members of all ages. In 1949, Eric Worrell opened the Ocean Beach Aquarium at Umina Beach. It was here in 1951 that he first started supplying tiger snake venom to the Commonwealth Serum Laboratories in Melbourne. Taipan venom followed in 1952.
People overseas always think of Australian animals as being koalas or kangaroos. They don't think very much about our snakes, our other reptiles, and we have the deadliest reptiles in the world.
He later expanded his repertoire to include spiders such as the Sydney funnel web. In 1958, he purchased land at Wyoming, establishing the Australian Reptile Park, which opened in October 1959, with a large number of exotic as well as Australian animals. In 1963, he had a giant dinosaur statue erected at its entrance as a tourist draw card, one of Australia's first big things. In 1996, Ploddy, as the concrete dinosaur became known, was moved to its current location at Somersby after Worrell's death. 2016 will see the owner of the reptile park, Robin Weigel, celebrate 20 years of Ploddy being perched prominently overlooking the M1, the gateway to the Central Coast. Local council has brought about many changes to how the peninsula operates. In the 1930s, a popular pastime for visitors was horse riding. However, as the peninsula began to expand, horse riding was banned on all beaches on the Central Coast.
No, this is not one of those romantic palm-covered islands you read about in the South Sea, but one of the beauty spots of the world, with its health-giving sunshine, glorious beaches, wonderful vigorating air from the southern Pacific Ocean. Oh. Another view of Pearl Beach. And looking down from a height of 185 feet at the natural rock swimming pool that's at the other end of Pearl Beach.
It's amazing how some things never change. I remember coming to this rock pool on my first trip here. It's almost untouched. The people here, although they dress differently than before, I still love this place all the same. It doesn't feel like 80 years have passed, at least not here.
About 666 feet above sea level, you come to Staples Lookout, about 4 miles from Woy Woy, which you can see in the distance. That's Woy Woy.
Looking over the peninsula is Staples Lookout, a popular stop for those coming and going. The Staples Lookout was built by the Woy Woy Rotary Club in the 1950s in tribute to Charles Staples Jr., also known as Jeff, who had a long career of public service on the Central Coast. When the Woy Woy Shire Council became a reality, Jeff Staples was voted the first council president in 1927.
Patonga from the cliffs gives one a magnificent view of the surrounding country. And no matter where you go, you are held spellbound by its beauty and grandeur.
The beach town of Patonga has seen the least amount of change over the years. Patonga means oyster in the Guringai people's language. The area gets this name due to the shape of the beach, with the waves carving out the sand in the shape of an oyster shell. The area serves as a quiet getaway for Sydney-siders who flock to the camping grounds and Patonga Beach Hotel. The only developments the area has seen over the last 80 years is the renovation of the hotel as well as smaller businesses. Even with its increasing popularity with visitors and locals, Patonga remains secluded from the rest of the world.
We're having a wonderful day on the peninsula. It's paradise, isn't it, Sally?
Yes, Uncle. It really is different from the last time we were here. What's that?
That's a television, Sally. There's at least one in every home these days.
Colour television is an amazing experience for Sally. Films or moving pictures, as Sally knew them, would only have been seen in a cinema and only in black and white. Technicolor or colour films were only in the early development stages in Australia in 1936, so Sally would not see a colour film until her late 20s, TV in her 30s, and colour TV in her 50s. Woy Woy to outsiders has always had a quiet, laid-back sort of charm. Well, someone who was fascinated by the area and who came to publicise it worldwide was the famous goon Spike Milligan. Spike Milligan, the comedian, lived on the peninsula with his parents for periods of time in the 1960s. Love or hate his humour, Spike had a great influence on how our area is viewed by the outside world. Spike's parents, Leo and Florence, settled in a small fibro house on Orange Grove Road at Blackwall shortly after their arrival from England in 1951. Spike's humour, influenced by his childhood in India, army experiences, surrealism, grinding poverty, bipolar personality and lust for life, made him world famous. Spike's dad Leo has a plaque on the wall of the Woy Woy Memorial Park. Spike also served during World War II. Spike Milligan was a patron of Woy Woy Little Theatre, and the locals even named a bridge after him.
Oh, Terry, Wogan, what have they done to you? He's had the operation. Go on, show us. Was it painful? Oh, have you got the bits left? How's the wife taking it, Terry? Oh, he'd do anything for publicity, this man.
And now, the late news. To be precise, an hour late.
Anyway, that's a brief version of the life and times of the Peninsula's biggest claim to fame, Spike Milligan. The Peninsula has seen some considerable development in the past 80 years. The Ettalong Diggers Club has expanded from humble beginnings to a modern club with international and local entertainers, as well as resort-style accommodation at the Mantra. It's worth noting that the Ettalong Beach foreshore has been given a huge facelift in recent times, with a new rock wall, pathways, children's play area, a new war memorial for the Vietnam campaign, cafe known as The Box, where one can relax over a coffee and take in the wonderful view. If you're lucky, you might see a dolphin riding the bow wave of the fantasy Palm Beach to Ettalong ferry as it arrives with another full load of passengers ready to enjoy the offerings of the peninsula. On their visit to the peninsula, Sally and her uncle had the privilege to witness the memorial service to mark the 50th anniversary of the Battle of Long Tan. The battle is one of the better known engagements of the Vietnam War, where a small group of soldiers from the 1st Australian Task Force faced and overcame units of the Viet Cong 275th Regiment and D445 Provincial Mobile Battalion. The Australians were outnumbered 5 to 1. Of the 108 involved, 18 were killed and 24 wounded.
From Mount Wara, you can see the famous Lion Island. How majestically it stands out. Also Barrenjoey in the distance. In all my travels around the world, I have never seen anything to equal this spot. Every kind of sport, especially fishing. And I feel sure that this romantic journey has given you some idea of the wonderful holiday.
As Sally and her uncle sit quietly on the sand of Ettalong Beach, as they did 80 years ago, they take time to reflect what the day had brought them. New friends, the bewildering technology of the 21st century, the vast changes and development of the land. But one thing still remains, it's a paradise, Peninsular Paradise. As the long day nears to a close, so we need to say goodbye to Sally and her uncle.
Thank you so much for having us here today on the peninsula. It's been a wonderful day. You're welcome.
You say farewell to the present, your future, as we said farewell to your past.
up, that's where